The next aspect that is very important for us to consider is how do we get the placings and the scores from oral reasons into some sort of a format that we actually can assign scores to where our 4-Hers have actually placed. Because this is a contest and there is a mathematical highest score and a mathematical lowest score. So let's talk a little bit about how to translate those placings into actual scores. Let's pretend that we've used this type of scoring mechanism. So we have a listing of the placings that have been given, and we also have 4 score sheets from judges. If you are using a manual system to tabulate scores, then this is going to involve learning how to use the Hormel computing slide for scoring judging contests. This is just a wonderful device, and if any of you have ever been involved with a livestock judging contest, then you'll be familiar with the fundamentals of this. But even if you have not, there is likely to be someone in your county extension office who does know how to use the Hormel scales, or certainly even 4-Hers and leaders will know how to use this. The way in which this works is, let's take an example of a young person who has, or the group has finished placing, and the judges have also given the official placing for a particular class. I would advise having as many Hormel scales, if you're going to do this manually, have as many set up as you have classes. So in this case, let's pretend that we were running a contest that just has 2 classes, and I have 2 Hormel scales for interpreting what those various placings are and how many points will be assigned to each one. So let's assume on this one where the official placing is 1342. And it was a class where the judges said there is a difference between the items, and it's fairly significant. The maximum allowable difference would be 15 points. In this case, they said that the difference between the first placing and the second is just 2 points, then 4 points, then 7. So what we would be doing is calling this an official placing of 1342. In other words, those were the items, how they were placed, but that the cuts or the differences are 247. With the Hormel computing scale, what we do is find what on one of the 2 cards that has red numbers on it, we find our 1342 as the very top number. And then using the other cards that come with it, we find a card that indicates that the cuts are what we had said, 247. Why is this important? It's tricky to line up the cards so that you can actually see, but it becomes important because that very top placing that meets the standard of these cuts of 247 with this particular placing assigns then a score for each one of the placings that 4-Hers might have utilized in judging that particular class. Because there are only 50 points that can be assigned, it's pretty clear that the top one should be getting 50 points, and it does. So if they placed their ranking as 1342, then they really got the top points, 50. That meant that somehow in their heads they were thinking, oh, there's maybe only about 2 points difference, then 4 points, then 7 points, although none of us can really think in those terms maybe during a particular judging scenario, but we think we have an idea, an intuitive idea that certain items are closer together than certain other items. So then each of those red numbers that we see in the Hormel scale here corresponds to a different but incorrect placing for that particular class and receives a diminished number of points as we go down. So I don't know that you can see this on here, but the very bottom score that they could have received for the most inaccurate placing with the wrongest set of assumptions regarding the spread would only give them a score of 7 for that particular one. And yet if the person who judged it to be in its correct rank order or placing would be getting 50 points. Now if it so happens that team members, and there's let's say there's a 4-member team, suppose that 3 of the members ranked near the top, but for the 4th team member, it just was a bad day and they were down on the bottom and got 7 points. Well, guess what? We get to drop that lowest score when there is a 4-member team. But if it's just a 3-member team and somebody had a bad day and actually did get a score of 7 on that particular class, sorry, has to get calculated in. And what that low score will do will pull that whole team point total down. So this would be for one of the classes. And because both 4-Hers can learn, and because their coaches and parents are always interested in how these determinations are made, one thing that you might want to do when you set up to share with them what the final placings are is to leave a Hormel scale for that particular class so that they can see what that determination was and how it was made. I know that even for me, what I have normally done, because I can't always leave those out, I will make a very careful photocopy of that particular Hormel scale and then mark what it is for. So that is an important component. Now, getting those scores is one thing. There's something else that has to be done if you're doing this manually. And here's an example from the Consumer Decision Making Contest from a few years back. You'll see all 8 classes across the top, and then you will see what the correct placing was and what the cuts were determined to be for each of those. And all of the numbers that are filled in the cells here correspond to that red column from the Hormel scale. And so that means that the tabulators then, when they pick up a 4-Hers scorecard or score sheet, they will know by looking at this translation sheet of how the placings translate into individual scores, and will have to transfer the correct score to that individual's overall score sheet. Again, this is for the manual system of doing this. We have also used spreadsheets for the manual system, that once we know what the individual scores are for each member, this is set up so that the total point scores for the teams are calculated automatically, along with the judges' scores for oral reasons. And then we know what the overall team pointage is, as well as what we know it for every single individual. So on a 4-member team, the lowest score is dropped. And on this one, let's see, the lowest score was 360 points for this individual. And so while 360 still counts towards that individual's individual scores, it was able to be dropped from the overall team score. And in this case, I guess the highest person had a 404, so that contributed to a higher point average than the person with the 360 points. So these, I do have spreadsheets available if anyone wishes to use the manual system. But I think increasingly what is happening is that many of you are using scantrons, at least at district level events, in which the scantrons are simply marked by the 4-Hers. They're quite accustomed to using scantrons because they use them in school and for a variety of means. And so by using scantrons and having someone who can run the complete statistical analysis is much faster than doing it manually. But I do believe that everyone who is involved with a consumer decision-making judging event needs to understand the basis from which these come. Now I'd just like to tell you, maybe you're using a combination of methods, and actually if you don't have Hormel score sheets, there is a website that you can consult, and it is called judgingcard.com. And with judgingcard.com, you will be able to get the same translation of placings and cuts into scores as you do from the Hormel sliding scale system. It's just a little bit faster to do it this way. Now, that's to know what these are. You would still have the dilemma if you just used the web-based system for coming up with your scores, of figuring out how you're going to tabulate those scores for if you're using a manual approach. And of course, your 4-H specialists will know individuals who can provide the service so that you can do Scantron-based scoring as well. And there may be counties or districts who have utilized other methods that I'm not aware of. Accuracy is tantamount, and ethical behavior with regard to scoring is also very, very important. So as you're assigning volunteers to be working with this aspect, have them work in at least pairs so that they can double check each work. It's extremely easy to make a mathematical error or to transpose a number. We think it's supposed to be 47, or let me use a smaller number. We think it's going to be 23 when it's actually 32. We've just eliminated points from a particular individual. So I hope this helps you. Please be encouraged. Actually, the Hormel slides are lots of fun to use and to kind of make that discovery. The final thing we do in relation to this at any judging event, and I'll show you the one that was used one year for compact fluorescent bulbs, we then publish the situation statement, set it out on the tables with all of the items, indicate what the placing was. In this example, it was 3142. We indicate what the cuts are, and then we state why these were placed in this particular order. These are the decisions of the reasons judges who were able to view the items and indicate what they believe to be the best placing for the situation and the facts as they gain them from the study guide. So go forth, plan carefully, and plan for the time that this is also going to take for you to organize and conduct a judging event.